So Donald finally emerged from whatever cave he was hiding in over the last few days, and he's exactly the same. I know, shocking. He came out to make some big announcements that turned out to be meaningless, really. But in the midst of it all, he managed to threaten yet another blue state, Colorado this time. We'll get to that in a bit.
Donald Trump has faced critics from all sides, but when the attack comes from his own family, it's impossible to dismiss. Mary Trump doesn't just condemn her uncle, she exposes him with the insight of someone who's seen the flaws up close. She doesn't rely on rumors or reports, she's lived the truth. And what she delivers isn't a casual roast, it's the complete collapse of Trump's carefully crafted image.
Okay, obviously the big story of the week, although there are many other big stories we shouldn't ignore, but, is this Epstein stuff, right? Yeah. It appears your Uncle Donald, is kind of having a baby over this. He is starting to criticize his supporters. He's angry that many parts of MAGA seem quite fixated on this. I would just love to hear your reaction to the whole damn thing.
Yeah, well, the whole damn thing is fascinating, quite frankly, for many reasons. But let's start with what, I don't know if it's the most obvious one, but it's the most obvious one to me. Donald is somebody who has lived his entire life with complete impunity. Like, he's been able to get away with everything. And he thinks it's because he's a genius, right? He thinks it's because he's so all-powerful.
If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Mary Trump enters the arena with the most powerful weapon of all, proximity. Critics like George Conway or Rosie O'Donnell can highlight Trump's flaws from a distance, but Mary grew up inside the dysfunction. She knows where his insecurity started, where the cracks first formed, and how his ego swelled until it loomed over the White House like a Macy's parade balloon. Her roast cuts deep because it's personal. She doesn't just mock the surface, she exposes the machinery underneath.
That he can manipulate people to do whatever he wants them to do. But the truth of the matter is, it's because he's been enabled his whole life by people like my grandfather and others. And now, most recently, of course, it's been the Republican Party and, of course, his followers. What he doesn't understand is that he can't turn off the switch. Now, I understand why he would think that, because, again, he has gotten away with everything, pretty much.
She starts by exposing Trump's lifelong obsession with appearances. Donald wasn't shaped by a drive for excellence, Mary says, but by a need to project it. He cared less about substance and more about the surface. She paints him as the child who never learned to measure worth by achievement, only by image. That's why every Trump venture, steaks, water, even Trump University, was never about success, only about the gold letters on the brand. To Mary, he isn't a leader at all, but a marketing gimmick in human form.
Is, or at least should be, a major setback for Donald's ongoing plan to take over any cities that don't abide by his rules or agree with him or support him. But here's the problem, and this is something we've come up against time and time again. Courts take time to render their judgment.
Then comes the fragility. Critics often mock Trump's thin skin, but Mary dissects it with surgical precision. She portrays him as a man who mistakes cruelty for strength because he never learned to face weakness. To him, kindness signals vulnerability, and empathy feels like failure. That's why he lashes out, mocking rivals, belittling critics, and raging at comedians. Mary argues this isn't dominance but fear. His insults aren't weapons, they're shields, thrown to protect the fragile boy still terrified of being laughed at.
So it seems that this is the pattern. A blue state is already on the enemy's list because blue states don't support Donald Trump. They don't vote for him. We hate his policies and we hate him. But sometimes it's a new thing that draws his ire, or I should probably say, becomes a handy excuse for his increasingly fascistic and hostile behavior towards blue cities and blue states.
Trump's obsession with winning becomes one of Mary's sharpest targets. She shows how every success in his life is exaggerated, while every failure is denied, erased, or pinned on someone else. He calls himself self-made while standing on the fortune his father gave him. He brags of being a business genius, yet leaves behind bankruptcies. To Mary, he isn't a mogul at all. He's the kid who cheats at Monopoly, flips the board when he loses, and still demands to be crowned champion.
All of a sudden, there's nothing to see or hear move along. It isn't going to fly, and it is kind of fascinating that is this issue. But I think he does not know how to process it at all, because unbelievably, for those of us who believe in accountability and who believe he's done horrible things for decades now, he cannot process the fact that he doesn't control this.
And then there's his hunger for validation. Mary shows Trump as a man who never stopped needing applause, treating every rally like a fix, every cheer like oxygen. She argues he isn't governing, but performing, addicted to the sound of his own name. His rallies aren't about policy, they're therapy, an attempt to fill a void that can't be filled. For Trump, lies aren't tools, but survival. He lies so reflexively that even harmless truths never escape. Mary mocks this compulsion, comparing him to a magician who keeps pulling scarves long after the trick is over, unable to stop even as the audience groans. The presidency didn't create this flaw, it magnified it, turning his dishonesty into a global spectacle.
Colorado got singled out because it had mail-in voting. Illinois has been singled out because Governor J.B. Pritzker has been very vocal about Donald and his fascism. New York has been singled out, well, because it's New York, and we've known for decades exactly who this pathetic moron is.
The roast sharpens when Mary turns to Trump's cruelty. She paints him as a man who equates kindness with weakness, shaped by a family where survival meant being ruthless. Instead of growing, he froze in that mindset, convinced strength is proven by humiliation. That's why, she argues, he governs with insults and divides through mockery. But the irony is clear. True strength is quiet, and Trump has never mastered quiet. Mary also shreds his claim of independence. He loves to pose as the lone warrior who rose without help, yet his life shows the opposite. And here the comedy writes itself. The bankrupt casinos, the failed products, the contradictions, the endless Twitter rants. Mary doesn't need to exaggerate. Trump's record does the work for her.
And do you think that his lashing out at his supporters is just a sign of his inability to comprehend this pushback, and that's why he's kind of lashing out?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's that. I think it's also it's insecurity, right? It's his understanding on some level.
Mary simply lays out the facts, and the absurdity speaks for itself. He's the man who could bankrupt a casino, the leader who turned press briefings into botched stand-up, the president who measured success by TV ratings. Each detail lands like a punchline, each memory a setup. His obsession with loyalty also gets skewered. He demands it from everyone, yet gives it to no one. Mary shows him as the man who insists on devotion but discards allies once they're no longer useful. For him, loyalty isn't mutual, it's servitude. She mocks how he surrounds himself with sycophants, mistaking flattery for friendship, leaving him trapped in an echo chamber where reality drowns under applause. And when it comes to legacy, Mary delivers the final twist. Trump isn't a monument, he's a meme, remembered not as a statesman, but as a cultural punchline.
One of the things he's most afraid of is being found out, to be to have people understand that everything about him that's projected publicly is based on a myth, that he's literally nothing of who he claims to be. He's nothing other people have purported him to be, starting with my grandfather, who's the man responsible for having created this myth.
Mary's roast devastates because it blends humor with insight. She doesn't just mock Trump as a public figure, she unmasks him as family, exposing the childlike desperation beneath the bluster. While critics often cast him as a monster, Mary goes deeper, portraying him as a tragedy, a man so terrified of insignificance that he built his entire persona on denial. His cruelty, dishonesty, and insecurity all trace back to the same fear, being ordinary. By the end, Trump's image isn't just cracked, it's demolished. The emperor isn't merely unclothed, he's revealed as the frightened child still chasing the approval of a father who will never be satisfied. In the end, Mary doesn't just roast her uncle, she annihilates the myth he built. And the most devastating part? She barely has to try.
So that was the impetus behind my working with the New York Times in 2017 and 2018. I handed over about 40,000 pages of documents that helped them put together a story that revealed the lie behind, Donald's claim that he was a successful self-made businessman. When in fact, my grandfather, over the course of Donald's lifetime, gave him like $410 million. Like even I could probably be successful.
Yeah,
at some
but
point
he screwed it up.
I'm pretty sure a potato could be successful with $410 million.
But Donald wasn't. So there you go.
Mary also tears into how Trump has treated women, not just in politics, but throughout his public life. She paints him as a man who craves admiration from women while offering only disrespect in return. To her, it's not mere misogyny, but insecurity disguised as dominance. She portrays him as someone who boasts of conquest out of fear of irrelevance, surrounding himself with beauty as if it could mask the chaos inside. The irony, she notes, is that he treats women as trophies, yet remains haunted by the prize he can never win. He demands devotion, hoards it, then discards people the moment they no longer serve his image. Mary likens his idea of loyalty to a vending machine. Feed it praise and protection, and you're allowed to stay. But the second you falter, you're tossed aside. This isn't strength, she argues. It's cowardice dressed as leadership.
But let's stop saying we and us, okay? It's them. It's these power-hungry murderers who care no more about our actual living, beautiful, wondrous children than they do about the goddamn clump of cells they pretend to revere. And it is we, those of us who value life, who would do anything to keep our children safe and create a world in which they can thrive and even survive until adulthood, who need to hang these murders around the Republicans' necks and let the blood of our children, who are dead as a direct result of their willful inaction, stain them forever.
Next comes Trump's fixation on legacy. Mary dismantles the myth of greatness by showing how desperate he is to rewrite history before it's even finished. He speaks of his presidency in tones reserved for the founding fathers, but Mary mocks the gap between fantasy and reality. Lincoln's legacy was emancipation. Roosevelt's was recovery. Trump's is lawsuits, celebrity feuds, and tweets that read like late-night drunk texts. She notes he's the only man who could sit in the Oval Office, yet act like he's in a high school cafeteria, counting retweets as proof of influence. Then she shreds the financial myths. Trump has always sold himself as a self-made billionaire, but Mary calls that story a fairy tale spun by a man who never learned the difference between building wealth and borrowing it.
In the meantime, Donald and the Trump regime keep taking more and more liberties with our constitutional rights. By the time the courts ruled, a lot of damage has already been done. Whether or not it can be reversed kind of remains to be seen. And here's the other thing. We have ample evidence that Donald and the DOJ is not necessarily going to comply with the judge's orders anyway.
Mary exposes Trump's twisted relationship with truth. Lies aren't mistakes, they're his default language, and even he forgets where they began. Behind every insult and defensive tweet is a man terrified the mask will slip, a child hiding under the blanket. That fear drives his need for attention, rage at critics, and obsession with image. His so-called strength is just yelling louder, but real strength is resilience, honesty, and facing consequences. He rages, sues, and spins endless tales to avoid silence, the silence that reminds him history may move on without him. By the end, Trump isn't the towering figure he imagines, but a fragile construct, trapped by his own myths, performing even when the world laughs at him.